All right. Hello again, adventures, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is number 10, I think. So today, there is a new anime that makes me uncomfortable. So Netflix announced, I don't know how long ago, that they were going to be, I think, just hosting or something. You can watch this anime called Delicious in the Dungeon on Netflix. I don't believe like Netflix made it. I think they just have like the distribution rights or something. I don't actually know. But you can watch it on Netflix, and that's all that matters. So I watched the first episode, and kind of the I guess I should start with the premise of Delicious in Dungeon is it's kind of your standard MMO style anime where the characters are effectively playing characters in an MMO style environment. They don't actually. It seems to me that they don't reference their characters outside of the game, and I don't think they refer to it as a game or anything. But it has the same basic premise of most MMOs, where they have character classes and they have a dungeon and they have resurrection mechanics and all that sort of stuff. So it's effectively like an RPG, but there isn't really like an isekai aspect to it. They're just and surprisingly enough, this is like an entire subgenre of anime is like basically RPGs, where and they use RPG terms and stuff like that. The first one that I ever watched was Sword Art Online, and the first half of season 1 of Sword Art Online is really good. Everything after that gets progressively more interesting. Let's put it that way. Effectively, it becomes the Kirito show, which is fine because go ahead and have a main character, but it becomes significantly more absurd as every single time Kirito walks into a brand spanking new game that he has never played, he is not just naturally good at it. He is the best player in the game. Doesn't matter how many other people have been playing longer than him. He is always the absolute best. And every single girl in the game wants to fuck him. Like, that's just how it works. And it isn't fun. But the first half of season 1 actually is a really interesting story idea where it's basically they all go into a VR MMO and they get trapped in there, and if you die in the game, you die in real life, and the only way for people to escape it is to beat the game. That is an interesting idea. That is an interesting story concept that I would like to explore. And since then, I have found tons of anime that kind of have a similar presence. Like Bofuri is about an MMO where the main character, unlike Kirito, the main character isn't actually good at the game. She just keeps mistakenly making choices that make her massively overpowered. And she has no idea what she's doing, and she just accidentally lucks into winning constantly. And it's the greatest thing ever. There's also things like that time I got reincarnated as a slime, and like it's an entire subgenre of anime, and I love it. Log Horizon is one that I'm going through right now. Log Horizon is really, really good, and I'm enjoying that. But anyway, back to Delicious in Dungeon. So the plot of this is you're following a party, which it seems like, at least right now, their goal is to get to a lower floor of this dungeon that the previous party all died on, and they want to try and save one person that might not be dead yet. And so they have to go down. However, everything is expensive, and they're flat broke because they all died on the lower floor, and they lost all their gear and money and everything. Or they got to keep their gear, but they lost all their money and all the items in their inventory and everything. The only thing they still have is the gear on their backs. And so they have to make it through the dungeon, but they don't have enough money for food. And that's a big thing, is going through this dungeon is a resource drain. Because of that, they need to have rations and food supplies. Otherwise, the reason that they died in the beginning is they were hungry, and it caused them some issues. It's a weird premise. So anyways, they start going down. Instead of buying food, they go, you know what? We'll just eat the monsters, which is apparently like a taboo thing, because you don't eat monsters. They're disgusting. And one of the characters is kind of obsessed with eating monsters, and they find another character who's actually really good at cooking monsters. And for me, the initial premise of it, I thought was really interesting. You know, again, RPG anime I love. And then the idea of, you know, they have to go through this dungeon and kill monsters for food, I thought was really interesting too. But the more I watched it, and I guess very minor spoilers, I'm not giving away anything that you wouldn't find in a, like a summary premise kind of thing. But throughout the first episode, because there's only one episode up so far, the next episode drops tomorrow. Throughout the first episode, it's not like the main character is not so much interested in eating monsters to me. And again, this is the slight spoiler. To me, it feels almost like he has some sort of monster eating fetish. And the other character that joins them just likes cooking and eating monsters, because they taste good, and it's an interesting way to cook things, and it's really fascinating to this particular character. But the kind of main character that kind of convinces everyone to try doing this gets almost sexual with describing how much he wants to eat monsters. And it makes me really uncomfortable. And I don't know if this is going to be kind of how it is through the entire thing. And it's not, and the thing is, it's not played as a joke, because that's an extremely common trope in anime in general, is you will have kind of the dirty old man archetype. Master Roshi in Dragon Ball Z is a really good example of this character that just does really, really inappropriate things, and is very obsessed with girls and seeing them, you know, seeing their underwear and all this other stuff. Like that's an extremely common trope, and you see it in a lot of anime in general, as you'll have a character that is just obsessed with girls and sex and stuff like that, and it's always played up as a joke. They're always this kind of comic relief character that is intended to be comic relief. Even in more serious anime, if you have a character like that, they are designed to be comic relief. And I don't know if it's just the translation or the decision that the voice actor made, or the localization itself. I don't know what it is, but it just, like, the way he talks about them is just extremely sexual. There's no other way to say it. The way he talks about eating monsters is extremely sexual. Well, I guess not extremely, but it just gives off, like, sexual vibes to it. And it's not treated as a joke or anything. It's just treated as this is it, and this is how he is. Now, the other characters in the party do have some issues with eating monsters, but has nothing to do with the kind of fetishization that the main character has with them. Just has to be the, ew, that's gross. You don't eat monsters. It's kind of the same same reaction you'd have if somebody said, hey, why don't we eat this roadkill? Ew, gross, you don't eat roadkill. So, yeah, like I said, other than that, it's an interesting show. And I'm planning on watching more of it because, again, that's my genre. I really, really like shows like that. And it's mostly, it's because I'm a huge MMO and RPG junkie. And so I love anything to do with RPGs and, you know, this is stuff like that. It's just super, super fun for me. And so seeing something that has inside jokes that I understand is great, and I love it. But yeah, it's just awkward. It's just really, really awkward. And I'm interested to see where it goes, but this might be a show that, if this is kind of a common theme throughout the entire series, it might be enough for me to just stop watching the series eventually, because it just feels weird. Like, I'm perfectly fine with the idea of I've always wanted to eat monsters, but when he starts like talking about the almost romantically and describing like the sensations he feels about it, like that starts to cross a line to where I'm like, you know what, maybe you don't want to eat monsters, maybe you want to eat monsters, like eat monsters. And that's an entirely different subgenre of Japanese animation that I don't think Netflix will be picking up. So we'll see where it goes. It's interesting, and other than those instances of just, again, it's very possible that the kind of awkwardness was a choice by the voice actor themselves. It could be that it was a choice of the localization, because we've already been hearing about localizers doing kind of weird things, and that's become a huge hot button topic in the dubbing community, and I don't even think this would be like, a lot of the complaints right now is a lot of the localizers. Stuff that they're doing is very political in nature and kind of pushing their own beliefs onto characters that never had those beliefs. And this doesn't feel like political or anything. It might just be that the reason that companies use localizers instead of just like direct translators is because translation from one language to another is not going to always make sense if you just translate the words. A really good example, at one point I spoke French. I don't really now, but I can read most of it. When I was taking French in high school, because we were high school students, we wanted to learn, you know, interesting phrases that you wouldn't find in a phrase book. And we learned some cool ones, like things like hangover. In French is, I have a hangover, j'ai mal aux chevaux. Which literally translated is, I have bad in my hair, or a better translation is my hair hurts. But they're not actually saying my hair hurts. That's a colloquialism that refers to I have a hangover, and it's so bad that even my hair hurts. So the idea of localization is basically to take the colloquialisms and things like that and translate them into something that makes sense over here. Another one of my favorites, which makes slightly more sense in English with a direct translation, but still is kind of weird, is to say that a woman has a large chest. You would say, I can't remember what the actual French phrase for it, but the literal translation of it is, she has a lot of people on the balcony. And again, a direct translation with no context, you wouldn't quite understand. She has a lot of people on the balcony. What the hell does that mean? As soon as it's put into context of you're describing a woman and go, hey, she's got a lot of people on the balcony, if you know what I mean, then it becomes very, very obvious. But other things like, again, my hair hurts doesn't make a whole lot of sense without something to kind of put it into context of how it's used in the original language. So that's what localizers are supposed to be doing. They haven't been doing that, and they haven't been doing that for years, decades even. But that's what they're supposed to be doing, and that's the intention. So it's theoretically possible that because Japanese culture and the Japanese language in and of itself is very, very different grammatically from English, whereas English is a Germanic-based language. And so our basic sentence structure is subject-predicate, which is the thing that's doing the action and then the action. Japanese is a very, very different sentence structure where you have, I think you identify the subjects involved in this as a sentence, and then you identify any objects in the sentence, and then you use the predicate. And so if you literally translate Japanese, it sounds really weird. There's also the fact that a lot of Japanese words are idea-based rather than just kind of single word-based. And so anyway, Japanese is a very confusing language when you look at it from a Germanic language-based perspective. And then if we want to get into the Romance languages, the Latin-based languages, it becomes even more kind of bizarre because Latin-based languages compared to a Germanic-based language are technically backwards. And a lot of their sentence structure doesn't make complete sense. So yes, it's possible that because there's a lot of colloquialisms in Japanese, especially in anime, and the culture in Japan is very, very different as far as things like sexuality, sexual promiscuity, and sexualization of all sorts of different things. It's a very, very different culture where a lot of things that in Japanese, if you directly translate them into English, sound offensive, sound just bizarre, and some of them just don't make sense at all. And so that's the kind of intent of localizers. But because the culture is so different, if you are translating Japanese from an English Western perspective, you can misinterpret the meaning of something because you don't understand the kind of colloquialisms in it. One of my favorite examples of this is actually not a translation issue. It is a time period issue, and that is the people that have a problem with the song "It's Cold Outside." "It's Cold Outside" is a wonderful Christmas-themed duet or winter-themed duet. I have sang it myself as part of a professional jazz band. It is some of the most fun you can have as far as a duet is concerned, because unlike a lot of duets that you see where it's basically singing the same notes or the same rhythm just on different notes, which is still very pretty, It's Cold Outside actually has counterpoint. Which is really, really fun, but does require a little bit more skill to be able to do successfully, especially since the notation is very much kind of speaking, like the rhythmic build up, especially with the male part, is very kind of speaking oriented, almost a recitative, which is an operatic term where in certain operas, because everything is sung, there will be certain parts where you're not really singing an aria, which is like a solo or something like that. You're just kind of getting from one scene to the next, and you're having dialogue, and she'll do this thing called recitative, which is effectively you just sing the notes on the same, or you sing the words on the same note, and it doesn't really have a rhythm because you're not in a song at that point. You're just speaking. So, Baby It's Cold Outside kind of has that, but baby, it's cold outside. Kind of has that aspect to it. So it's a really, really fun song, but there is a single line in it where, the whole point of the song is there are these two people. They want to spend the night together, but society says, "Nah, that's not right." And so the girl is basically, and the song's about flirtation. It's just this massive flirtation, and so the girl is playing the kind of chaste, innocent person, and the guy is playing the kind of chivalrous. Oh, but I'm doing this for you, and the girl's going, "Oh, I just can't. What would other people think?" But they both want the same thing. And so the entire thing is just this giant flirty thing where they're going, "Well, I guess I gotta go." "Oh, you don't have to go. Look how cold it is out there. You should probably stay here with me." "Oh, I couldn't do that. What would my mom think?" And there's a line in there. And the line is, "Say what's in this drink." And in the early 1900s, when this song was written, "What's in this drink" had a very different connotation. Nowadays, if someone says, "Hey, what's in this drink?" they're talking about, "Hey, did you try to roofie me?" That wasn't really a thing that was going on way back then, and that wasn't what this was in reference to. Or it might have been going back then. I actually don't know. But it wasn't a common aspect of society that you would talk about it, at least. However, that phrase was really, really common. And what it was if someone would drink something and go, "Say, what's in this drink?" what they were actually referring to was a lack of alcohol content. It was basically a way for people they would water down their drinks to save money. And so someone would drink it and it's like, "Hey, say, what's in this drink? There's like nothing in here." And that's what it was, and that's what it's referring to. However, because modern society is just absolutely focused on this idea that everything has to be looked at through a modern lens and there's no room for context or anything like that, they have decided that this is a song about one person trying to drug another person and force them into physical intimacy. And that's not what it was. It's never what it was. And it has always been about two people that want to do something that society kind of frowns upon, and they're trying to come up with excuses. And it's a massive, flirty, fun song. Going back to this, it's very possible that the localizer or even just the voice actor or voice director has misinterpreted what is a joke in Japanese culture into something that feels like a fetish in Western culture. Or it could be that that's what the original translation was. I don't know. I've not watched it in Japanese because I have issues with subtitles and with my really bad double vision for the past week and a half. I can't read them. So I don't know if that's what the initial. I don't know if that's what the original translation is or whatever, but it just makes me feel awkward and uncomfortable. So yeah. Overall, I think it's a cool show, and I like the premise. I want to see how it goes as they get deeper and deeper into the dungeon. And if this dude keeps fetishizing eating monsters, I'm probably going to stop watching, because there's a lot of other good stuff out there. But if they get over this weird kind of sexualization of eating monsters, I'm into it. It's kind of a cool show. So anyway, that was just what I wanted to. I've been wanting to talk about this for a couple days now, but the whole thing with AI and SAG-AFTRA being a morally bankrupt piece of shit came up, and I had to talk about that yesterday. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, if anyone does want to know an update about my health, I am still massively sick. I still can't eat anything. I tried eating just a plain bag of chips last night because I wanted some salt. I haven't had salt in almost a week. That got me really, really sick. So, still can't eat anything. It's super nice. So, fun. Anyway, that's going to be all for me today. I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right? Bye-bye.